This is why Trump is not ever going to release all the Epstein files. And make no mistake about who's responsible for that. Don't be blaming poor Pam Bondi or Bongino or Patel. No, because they're not the ones in charge. They're not the ultimate decision makers. As Pam Bondi so eloquently explained when she became Attorney General, Donald Trump is the top law enforcement officer of the nation, and she and the entire Department of Justice answer to him. They don't answer to the Constitution, and they don't answer to the law. They answer solely to Donald Trump. So, with that understood, it then becomes much easier to understand why Pam Bondi announced last week that there was nothing more to be released regarding the Epstein case. So, just think about it. Think about that for a minute. Donald Trump, who was literally best friends with Jeffrey Epstein for 10 to 15 years, why in the world would anyone think he would allow the release of all these files? Donald Trump, who once said he could never run for president because if Epstein was a womanizer, he told Chris Matthews, to think how much more of a womanizer Trump was. He was almost comparing himself to Epstein as if he was in a competition to be the biggest womanizer of the two. So everyone is always known his character and what he's about, but for some reason, MAGA people thought he would be the one to come clean and make the US government come clean on all the hidden secrets that they believe could be traced ultimately back to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, it was so naive of them to believe this, but you know what? Trump is a persuasive straight talker. I mean, at least he sounds like a straight talker because he says things no other politician would say. He says things that would get other politicians pummeled in the court of public opinion. So he comes off as this fearless, strong guy who's willing to risk everything for what he believes. And he makes you believe he'll be the only one strong enough to stand up against the so-called deep state. But this was always a con, and Christians in large part were the mark because Christians are pretty well known to be naive. So surely when Trump looked out and saw so many people calling themselves Christians who were following other con artists like Kenneth Copeland. I mean, these con artists rival Trump, like Kenneth Copeland and Paula White. Yes, that Paula White, the Paula White he's appointed to be the head of the whatever he calls it, faith office of the White House, and even Franklin Graham. Yes, even Franklin Graham. When he saw these so-called Christians following all those people, he must have thought they were a very easy mark. He's enough of a politician to pick up on that kind of thing. And that's exactly what they turned out to be, going against all biblical wisdom and biblical teachings to be wise and to be discerning and not to be fools. These Christians bought it hook, line, and sinker. But so did many others. And now everyone is starting to see just what a huge con this man, our president, has pulled over on the entire nation. So let me read you something my good friend Christine Pack posted on her Facebook page a few days ago introducing Rachel Denhollander. And then I'm going to read a most powerful piece by Rachel that makes it so clear what a fraud our president has always been. And it will help you understand why the full Epstein files will never be released by his administration. I knew it was bad with him and his problems with women, but I honestly had no idea it was this bad. So let's get into it here. First, Christine wrote this. She said, I first heard of Rachel Denhollander when she spoke up about her former gymnastics coach, Larry Nasser. Nasser had violated Rachel when Rachel was a child. And do you know what happened? Rachel purposed in her mind that she would do something about it when she could. So she grew up to become a lawyer and she bided her time. And when the time was right, she stood up and blew open and shone the light on the scandal that was Larry Nasser, also the scandal that was women's gymnastics. Her takedown, her, her takedown of Larry Nasser was clean, methodical, sourced, clear, and frankly, epic. She used her own voice, and in doing so gave other women the courage to find their voices. And after that, she began to shine the light on abuse in conservative reform circles. My circles, Christine says, and my circles as well. And my appreciation for her grew even more. Now she's reminding us that despite America being one of the most civilized countries in the world, we also still harbor extreme pockets of misogyny and abuse of the most vulnerable among us, overwhelmingly women and children. And that misogyny and abuse of power, unfortunately, reaches up to the office of the president. The reasons listed here by Rachel are why I couldn't vote for Donald Trump, Christine says, despite being a political and physical conservative. The same goes for me. This and reasons like this were why I couldn't vote for Trump either in 2016 or 2020 or 2024, even though I had been a conservative for all of my life up until that point. All right, let's get into what Rachel said. This is really powerful. So let's take a listen to this. She says, now remember, her life's work is fighting for women who've been abused. Okay. So this is what she focuses on and she concentrates on. This is why she, has the time to do all this research and have all this information, which I really appreciate. And I mean, she's telling me a lot of things I didn't know. I knew it was bad. I had no idea it was this bad. She says, no, we aren't moving on from the Epstein files. We aren't moving on from trafficking and child rape. And no, Donald Trump, we aren't buying the idea that the files never existed or were faked by Obama or whatever new story you come up with. We see you. We remember Katie Johnson, who sued you for forcible rape, alleging that when she was 13 years old, you and Jeffrey Epstein violently assaulted her at 4 events in Epstein's home in 1994. It was 31 years ago. Some of us never forget her, and we'll make sure she's remembered. We remember Stacey Williams, who alleged you assaulted her in 1993 while Epstein watched. We remember that in 2017, Epstein himself told journalist Michael Wolff that he'd been your closest friend for 10 years. We remember that you told a journalist, I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Those of us who work in spaces where we see narcissism and abuse and manipulation daily have always seen you for who you are. Others are figuring it out now. We remember E. Jean Carroll. The trial court found in her favor. The appellate court did too. We know. We remember Jill Harth. We remember your wife Ivana's allegations of violence and rape made under oath. And we also understand why she would stop saying it. We deal with men like you every day. In other words, to those of you who are still naive, who say, oh, well, she took it back and she stopped saying it, you got to understand why. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. Because a woman takes something like that back, charges she's made against a very powerful man, doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It means she's more afraid of him than she is of the law, meaning she's afraid that the law won't protect her. And well, in fact, she knows the law won't protect her. So they they shut up. They stop talking about it. And that's why. She continues, we remember the numerous contestants on your pageants who alleged assault, voyeurism, and harassment. We remember that in 2005, you bragged to Howard Stern that you could walk into the dressing room to see them changing without permission because you owned the franchise. You owned the pageant. We know you said men weren't supposed to be back in those rooms, but you go in anyway while they were naked. You know they're standing there with no clothes. This is what Trump said. You know they're standing there with no clothes, and you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that. Yeah. We remember that you did this at a teen pageant with girls as young as 15. We remember Summer Zervo. Sorry, if I mispronounce some of these names, my apologies. Uh, some of them, not this one necessarily, but some of them I haven't heard, and I'm honestly not sure how they're pronounced, but I'll continue. We remember Summer Zervos. We remember she sued you and ended the suit when she secured her right to speak freely about what you'd done. We remember Alva Johnson. We remember she withdrew her lawsuit, citing continual threats to her safety. She was threatened. Her safety was threatened because she was suing him. That's the kind of man we're dealing with. And you just laugh it off? Christians laugh that off? Oh, haha. No, no. Hey, I listen, I know a lot of you think women make false allegations, but this many women, are you kidding me? Do you know in my life, not a single woman has ever made a false allegation against me? Ever? And I believe most men have never been had any allegations against them like this made. Most men who've never done anything like this have never had allegations, much less from this looks like 20 or 30 people here. And these are just the ones that came forward. We remember Kathy Heller. We remember her husband and children confirming her account of your behavior when you were introduced and she tried to reject your advances. We remember that you publicly bragged about grabbing women and kissing them, just like she says you did. We remember Lisa Boyne. We remember Kristen Anderson. We remember Jessica Leeds. We remember Temple Taggart. We remember Amy Doris. We know multiple people confirmed that she immediately disclosed your assault after you forcibly violated her. We remember Corinna Virginia, who alleged you assaulted her while saying, "Don't you know who I am?" Seriously? Don't you know who I am? Unbelievable. Disgusting. So disgusting. We know you bragged that you can do whatever you want when you're rich. We remember Karen Johnson. We remember Mindy McGillivray. Okay, probably mispronounced that one. And that her account of being forcibly groped was confirmed by a colleague she disclosed to minutes after it happened. We remember Rachel Crooks. We remember Natasha Stonyhoff. We remember that 6 people remembered Natasha disclosing the assault very shortly after it happened. 6 people. 1 or 2 witnesses, the Bible says. Here we have 6 for just one accuser. We remember Nini Laxonen. Probably mispronounced that one. We remember Cassandra Searles. We remember that 2 men, an actor and a photographer, both reported that you were at sex parties with underage girls and engaging in sex acts with girls who were young teens, right? That's 2 witnesses for that one. We remember that in 2008, you told Chris Matthews that your history with women would be an issue if you ever ran for office. You said, "Can you imagine how controversial I'd be? You think Bill Clinton with the women? How about me with the women? Can you imagine?" Yes, Donald, we can imagine because we deal with men like you every day. So, no, Donald Trump, we aren't moving on. We see you. Wow. Bravo. Bravo to Rachel Denhollander. That was amazing. So powerful, such a powerful piece. And there you have it. These files will never be released because Trump rivaled Epstein in these abuses. And he was pals, he was close friends with Epstein for over 10 years. He says 15 years. Jeffrey Epstein said 10 years. So somewhere between 10 and 15 years, they were best buddies. They partied together. They did everything together. And there's incriminating evidence against him all over these files. He hasn't been co-opted by some deep state cabal to protect them. He now is the deep state, and he's acting only to protect himself. He is the deep state that will prevent these files from ever coming out. And if you're a Christian and you voted for this man and you supported him, I won't condemn you for that because perhaps you didn't know all this. But if you're listening to my voice now, you now know. And it's your turn to speak out and start sharing what you've come to know with others. Don't let the darkness of lies continue to spread. Shed the light of truth. Shed the light of truth in the darkness. And let's work to stop all this injustice before it gets worse. That's what Christians are called to do. All right, that's it for me. I appreciate you watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.